I would like to begin today's video by apologizing on behalf of you to me. And that apology is not accepted. I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in all of you that I have to say this. Wreck-It Ralph is not demonic. It is not communist propaganda, and it is not turning the frogs gay. What are you talking about, Jonathan? What do you mean, what am I talking about? You actually don't know? Oh, I am sorry for what I'm about to share with you. I hope you can read my name tag. It's Felix. In the mirror, it's reversed, though. I don't know if this reverses it. This is Taylor Alicia. She's been on the internet for a long time. She was like a 2010 internet girl, if you know what I'm talking about. But a couple years ago, she pivoted into like evangelical content. And since specifically like Christian schizophrenia, like she makes the type of videos that your really religious aunt sends to you that are like, hey, you know this thing that you like that's like normal and cool? What if I told you it was actually bad and opening a portal to Satan in your living room? What about that? Baby monitors, demonic. AirPods, demonic. Lululemon, I'm actually kind of on board with that one. Labubu's, demonic. 6'7", demonic. Sunscreen, demonic. You get the idea. A couple months ago, she made this video. The thesis of this video is that all these movies are imbued with a heretical ideology called gnosticismo in Spanish, probably. Gnosticism in English. And the main movie she uses to make this point is Wreck-It Ralph. And I wanted to make this video because I read Thomas Pynchon and Gene Wolfe and Cormac McCarthy, which means this is a rare case of Jonathan from Unga Bunga actually kind of knowing what he's talking about. Which is exciting for me because, moment of complete honesty here, it doesn't happen very much. Ready? So we're gonna jump into it, and I'm not gonna take personal shots at Taylor. I'm sure she's lovely. She's just wrong about Wreck-It Ralph.
Hi, this video is going to cause you to never look at any of these movies the same ever again, and so many more. I can't believe I went so long without noticing that there is a religion that is repetitively pushed on all of us in movie after movie after movie.
No, there isn't.
And the religious theme that is repetitively pushed on all of us is this religion called Gnosticism. And if you don't know what Gnosticism is, it is essentially putting God in a bad light.
No, it's not. We're gonna come back to this. I can't drop like 10 pages of Gnostic lore in the first like 2 minutes of this video, but be assured, I will. All I'll say for now is, anything can be an analogy for anything if you don't know what you're talking about. To summarize the first part of this video, Taylor's view of Gnosticism is that they believe God bad, Satan good, and therefore we should all just sin all the time. Which isn't what it is. We'll get into that in a second, but also big guy in power being bad that's a normal movie thing. That's not propaganda. If you're positioned that every movie with a bad guy in power is anti-Christian propaganda, what are we doing here? I'm sorry, we can actually get into the video now.
Okay, so every single movie that I have pops up on the screen right now, they all share a common theme, and the common theme being a perfect world, but the creator of the perfect world, or the one in charge of the perfect world, is evil. We are gonna start off with the children's movie Wreck-It Ralph.
I'm gonna wreck it!
In the Wreck-It Ralph movie, we are met with a perfect world called Niceland, and a man lives there who goes by the name of Fix-It Felix. Felix is loved and adored by all the citizens in Niceland and lives in a penthouse in the clouds. Not to mention that Fix-It Felix is a carpenter who has healing power, who got his magic hammer from his father, and who also has resurrection power. Very similar to Jesus in the Bible.
It's a video game! That's how they work, Taylor! Everybody regenerates! It's like an important part of the world building of this movie that everybody regenerates. Also, if Felix is Jesus, why is he accepted by the people in power? Why is he protecting the status quo? Why does he get married? Jesus didn't do any of those things.
And then we are introduced to another character who is not welcomed or loved by the citizens of Niceland, and his name is Ralph.
My name's Ralph, and I'm a bad guy.
He wrecks the building in Niceland, and thankfully, Felix is always behind him, cleaning up his mess. And every time Ralph gets to the top of the building, he is repeatedly thrown back into the city dump where he lives. So now we have Ralph in the city dump looking up to Niceland. And throughout this movie, you are led to feel very sorry for Ralph, even though he is a bad guy. The entire movie, you are basically saying, dang, poor guy, poor Ralph. Sympathy for the devil.
Sympathy for the devil. The devil. Okay, this is the first gripe I have with Taylor's analysis of this movie, which is her general worldview about like good and bad, which is Ralph is bad because he's bad. He's a character undeserving of grace or sympathy or understanding because his role is to be bad. It's his identity. Everything Ralph does is bad because Ralph is bad. Conversely, everything that Felix and the citizens of Niceland do is good because they are good. It's their identity. It's the role assigned to them. Okay, listen to this.
And throughout this movie, you will see that Ralph truly wants to be good, but he just can't be. We see him at a meeting called Bad Guys Anonymous as he goes on to tell everyone he wants to be good. And then they tell him, Ralph, you can't be good because you're bad. And that's okay because it's okay to be bad. You will never be good, and that's not bad. In other words, just be yourself. Embrace sin and embrace the bad in you.
I am bad, and that's good. I will never be good, and that's not bad. There's no one I'd rather be than me.
This mantra that the bad guys repeat is the thesis of the movie, and Taylor totally misreads it. I'm bad, and that's good. I will never be good, and that's not bad. What that phrase is doing is separating the identity of being the antagonist from the moral value judgment of actions of bad. What they're saying is, I'm an antagonist, but that doesn't mean I have to be an evil person. This is very important to the movie. I can accept my identity as a bad guy and still be a good guy, and those ideas are not mutually exclusive. And the whole point of this movie is Ralph internalizing that idea. That's his character arc. That's his journey. Taylor misunderstands this because in her worldview, your identity as a good guy or bad guy determines the moral value of your actions. You can't separate the moral value of someone's actions from their identity. They're one and the same. When the other bad guys tell Ralph to accept himself as a bad guy, she reads that as them telling him to be okay with living in sin. But what they're saying is to separate his identity as the antagonist from the moral value of his actions. I'm sorry that I had to explain this to you like you're a third grader, but some of us are choosing to have the media skills of 9-year-olds. This type of worldview, meaning identity-based moral judgments, seeped into Christianity, specifically Protestantism, around the 1500s from the teachings of a guy named John Calvin. He was an early reformist. In fact, Calvinism is like a living Christian sect today. And it's not a mainstream sect, but his ideas were and remain very influential in Protestant and specifically American evangelical thought. The two big things he taught were predestination and irresistible grace. What John Calvin believed is everybody that's saved is saved 100% by the grace of Jesus. Because we are all sinful, we've all done bad things, there is absolutely nothing we can do to save ourselves. We are 100% dependent on Jesus to free us from our sins. And there's nothing we can do to save ourselves. Because there is nothing we can do to get Jesus to save us, there's also nothing we can do to stop him from saving us. Therefore, Jesus chooses who he's going to save and who he isn't. It's written in stone, and there is nothing anybody can do to change it. That's predestination. Irresistible grace is the idea that there's nothing you can do to unsave yourself. The grace of Jesus Christ is irresistible. It cannot be resisted. Therefore, all of humanity is born into one of two groups: saved, good, and unsaved, bad. And there is nothing you can do to change what group you're in. Therefore, goodness and badness are identities that you inherit, rather than a label describing your actions. Ralph is bad because he just is. It's his role. Felix is good because he just is. It's his role. That's where Taylor is getting these ideas from. Okay, we can continue now.
Then in the next scene, it furthers the point of Ralph being depicted as this Satan-like figure, as the serpent in the garden with Adam and Eve. We see him offering the red fruit to a snake and these other demon-looking characters.
Demon-looking characters. Also, garden scene in Book of Genesis is Satan giving fruit to woman, not man, Satan, giving fruit to snake, which is what this scene is. She's just pointing at things and being like, what about that though? What about that?
The name Ralph is also derived from the Norse, and it means wolf.
Oh, shoot! Why didn't you lead with this? Ralph bad because Ralph means wolf and wolf bad. Obviously, Jonathan mean apple and Doctor hate apple, therefore Jonathan hate Doctor. Idiot. Your third eye isn't open, bro. You're not seeing it like I see it. Your chakras aren't aligned. This is me, this is you, bro. I'm so galaxy brained.
Ralph makes his way up to the penthouse door and enters into a party that is going on in Niceland. He gets into an argument with them, destroys their cake, and says that he is going to get a medal like Felix has, and it will outshine any medal that Felix has, which is a very similar scenario in Isaiah 14:14, where Lucifer tells heaven, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High.
Ralph doesn't want the medal. He wants to be accepted, and the villagers say they'll accept him if he gets a medal. That's why he wants a medal. It's not because he wants to outshine Felix. I legitimately cannot tell if she's intentionally misunderstanding this to feed her content form, or if she's just a little bit dumb. I hesitate to even speculate.
A little later in the movie, as Ralph embarks on his quest to get a medal to be better than Felix, he finds himself in a candy paradise, and he lands by a tree in a candy garden where he meets a girl and he lies to her about who he is.
Why a garden? What makes this a garden specifically? This is just outside. It's not even the nice outside. It's the outside where the homeless girl lives. This is the Garden of Eden, you tell me?
Is this story sounding familiar at all to you? This girl, who goes by the name Vanellope, grabs the medal that is found hanging on a branch. The medal that could help make you like Felix, symbolizing the fruit of knowledge.
Whoa! You're just gonna jump that on me? You're just gonna throw that in there? The medal, which, by the way, represents knowledge of good and evil. Moving on. You can't just throw in a fun fact and expect us to all go along with it. I need context. I need explanations. I need a graph. What do you mean the medal represents the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil? Is Vanellope gonna try to eat the medal? Will she get banished if she does? Also, if this were the garden scene from Genesis and Ralph were Satan, wouldn't he want her to take the medal? Isn't that the whole point of the garden scene?
And it's in this moment that we see Vanellope glitch for the first time. Vanellope has a defect that is making her glitch, and if she is caught glitching, she will be thrown out of the game by King Candy, the ruler of the candy paradise. Much like Ralph, Vanellope is desiring to be accepted just as she is, glitch and all. King Candy ends up arresting Ralph and tells him that bad guys don't win medals. And he explains to Ralph that if Vanellope stays in the game with a glitch, then she would have their world destroyed. Guys, is this sounding familiar?
Yeah, it would sound familiar if he wasn't lying. This is the part of the show where we need to talk about Gnosticism. Gnosticism. Because I can't keep disagreeing with her until you know what Gnostics believe in a nutshell. Believe, duh. There's no more of them. Specifically, you need to know about Valentinianism. Valentinianism comes from an early Christian theologian called, shocker, Valentine, I don't know. He was a part of the Christian church, and at one time he was in line to become a bishop in the Christian church. His followers would have called themselves Christians at the time, and it actually wasn't until long after his death that his ideas were deemed heretical. And so, this is the form of Gnosticism that is most known about today. The Gnostics went extinct like 1,000 years ago, but Valentinianism has the most writings about it preserved. And when people talk about Gnosticism, especially in a Christian context, they're almost always talking about Valentinian Gnosticism. One of the main purposes of Valentinian Gnosticism is to reconcile Christian theology with the problem of evil. This is a long-standing issue that people have with Christian philosophy, which is if God is all good and all-powerful, why did he make a world that has suffering in it? Either he's not all-powerful and he couldn't make a world with all suffering in it, or he's not all good, because one would assume if he were all-powerful and he could have made a world with no suffering in it, then he would have. Therefore, God must either not be all-powerful or not to be all good. That's the central problem of it. And it's been debated for thousands of years. You can watch a bajillion YouTube videos of people arguing about it. I'm not going to hash out the arguments. That's not the point of this video. Valentinianism adjusts for this problem by embracing Gnostic teachings about the nature of God. Okay? Gnostic creation story. In the beginning, there was the pleroma, which is ancient Greek for the fullness. In the fullness lived Bythos, the primal father. The best comparison I have for Bythos is what normal Christians believe about just God. Perfect and eternal and unknowable and all-powerful and incomprehensible in every way. The depth of all being is the phrase that comes up again and again to describe him. And in the beginning, that was all there was. There was the fullness, the pleroma, and Bythos, the primal father. And he was hanging out, but one day he had a thought. And that thought emanates into 30 eons. That means life forces. 15 pairs, one male, one female. Don't ask me how it worked. I don't know. And together, these life forces in their pairs can create new life forces, okay? And they create like a big, happy family in the pleroma. Until one day, Sophia, she's the youngest eon, goes, men are low-key not Sigma. And I'm pretty sure I could do this creating a new thing on my own. And then she does. And technically she succeeds. And this is kind of where I fail as a researcher, because the details I found on exactly how this worked or exactly what happened next all conflicted with each other. But basically, this new guy, I'm going to call him James until I give him his real name in 10 seconds. He's like imperfect, he's incomplete, he's incompatible with the pleroma, he's not like in line with the fullness, so he gets kicked out. And so James doesn't like that very much, and in his new place, in the outside of the fullness, he starts making his own universe in the image of the pleroma. This is our universe. It's where we live. And because of this, he gets the name the Demiurge, which sounds like a bad guy, actually just means the craftsman in ancient Greek. Probably regular Greek too. I don't speak Greek. I don't know. So he creates the sun and the earth and the stars and all that good stuff. But because it's made by this imperfect creature, the Demiurge, it is also imperfect. It's not full. It has faults and flaws and like other bad things. And the Demiurge doesn't like this very much. So when he goes to make something in his own image, something that he thinks is like him, that thinks like him, that can understand what he is, he takes kind of some of the essence of his mother, Sophia, that was like left laying around, I don't know, and he makes humanity out of it. But that is where he messed up. Because when humanity wakes up, they wake up with something called the divine spark inside them. That comes from those bits of Sophia that the Demiurge put in them. That spark instills them with an attachment to Bythos, the primal father. It gives them a curiosity and a drive to understand him and them and their relationship to him. And if they come to understand it, they have the ability to become like Sophia and Bythos and pass up the Demiurge and enter the fullness, the pleroma. This is called gnosis. And the Demiurge does not want that to happen. Gnosis is the Gnostic idea of salvation. It's coming to understand your true relationship to Bythos, the primal father. The Demiurge does not want this to happen. So he designs the world and he behaves in a way to get all of humanity to believe that he is the true God and not understand who they truly are. And so the Demiurge creates this Garden of Eden where these two people will live in total and complete comfort forever, right? His idea is because they're in total and complete comfort forever, they will never learn, they will never grow, they will never have a desire for anything that they don't already have, and they will never learn who they truly are. So Sophia sends the snake to convince Adam and Eve to eat the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So they get kicked out of the Garden of Eden and sent down to the world, which is going to have problems and tribulations and sin and evil, but it's the only place where they can learn who they truly are. And so the Gnostic reading of the Old Testament is Adam and Eve and their descendants interacting with the demiurge, who is trying to convince them to worship him because he's the real God. And that's where you get his obsession with not worshiping idols from. It's where you get the phrase, I am a jealous God. It's also where you get the kind of strict and cold and demanding demeanor that the God from the Old Testament can kind of come off with sometimes. It's all explained by this, by the demiurge not actually being who he claims to be. Then Jesus comes along as a messenger from Sophia, and he brings the truth about who humanity really is. That's why he rejects so many of the laws of Moses from the Old Testament. It's why he talks about him being the true messenger of truth and claiming authority not from the institutional power that the God of the Old Testament set up, but from God himself. So Gnosticism gets its name from its belief in gnosis. Gnosis is the Greek word for knowledge, and it's coming to understand your true identity and your true relationship to Bythos, the primal father. This is like receiving Christ into your heart in like evangelical Christianity, meaning it's the big, main, important thing that you need to do during this life to set yourself up for the next life. That, in a nutshell, is Valentinian Gnosticism. So Taylor's claim is that this movie is Gnostic because it portrays God, a godlike character, King Candy, as being secretly evil. She thinks that this movie uses King Candy as a metaphor for the demiurge, but she misunderstands the fundamental idea of Gnosticism as being God is bad, Satan is good, so sin as much as you want. But in reality, Gnostic theology is not all that concerned with the ideas of sin and salvation, meaning freedom from sin, as they are with the ideas of ignorance and gnosis, meaning freedom from ignorance. I'm sorry, that was a lot of information. It's been like 10 minutes since I told a joke. Here's a collection of memes I like.
Other racers even confront Vanellope and tell her that glitches can't race, and that the rules are there for a reason. They are there to protect us, which is accurate. But in this scene, the ones who are teaching to keep the king's rules are portrayed as the bad guys, which gears our sympathy towards the girl with the glitch, the girl living in sin. It's because of the glitch of sin that the world will be destroyed. But in this twisted version of the Bible story, we see that sin is rewarded, that it was a good thing. And of course, the king is painted in a bad light, a king who wants to do nothing but destroy the world with plagues. I'm sorry guys, there is just way too much in this movie for this to be a coincidence.
In fairness, he literally does try to destroy the world. Like when he fuses with the giant bug and he tries to kill everybody, you're taking this guy's side? If this guy reminds you of God, reevaluate your concept of God. Also, the glitch is a horrible metaphor for sin because King Candy gave it to her and there's nothing she can do about it, which is not how sin works. This is another example of Taylor's dualistic and identity-centric view of morality. Vanellope wants to be accepted in her identity as a person with a glitch, but that's bad. She should be ostracized and punished for her glitch, which I will remind you, she has no control over. The idea that you could watch this movie and come out of it on the side of these girls fills me with rage. That's so annoying. What's wrong with you? That's the end of like the relevant part of Taylor's video. She goes on to talk about a bunch of other videos that all have authority figures that you're supposed to think are good but then turn out to be bad, saying that all of them are calling God bad and saying we should all just sin, and that we should never question the rules or people in authority. And I won't come out and just call this video a CIA psyop, but only because I would expect the CIA to produce a much better video. Frankly. In summary, Felix doesn't represent Jesus. He's imperfect. He totally has his own arc. He doesn't always stand up for what he believes in. He is very non-confrontational. He struggles to get out of his own perspective. He has a character arc. He learns and grows just like Ralph, and unlike Jesus. he's deeply flawed. You could say of Felix that just because he's a good guy doesn't mean he's a good guy. Second, if King Candy is the demiurge because he's a ruler who's bad but pretends to be good, then so is Jafar, and so is Lord Farquaad, so is Big Brother, and so is Captain Ahab, and so is the Warden from Holes. And then the definition becomes too broad to be useful. My bad principal from high school is a stand-in for the demiurge. You're a metaphor for the demiurge. You get a demiurge metaphor. You get a demiurge metaphor. Everybody gets demiurge metaphors. Everything is an analogy for the demiurge if you don't know what you're talking about. Also, insert earlier comment about how a video about how movies that say that people in power are sometimes bad are all inherently anti-Christian propaganda is a psyop. And remember that the claim of Taylor's video is not that King Candy could be read as a demiurge-like character if you make some concessions. It's that King Candy represents the demiurge. He was put there on purpose to push Gnostic thought on your kids. If the film were really Gnostic, you would expect it to criticize the creation of Sugar Rush. They would be trying to escape it and get to the pleroma, the fullness. That's the whole point of Gnosticism. Instead, what Wreck-It Ralph does at the end is reset the world to its natural order, implying that the world in the way it was created was good, which is totally at odds with Gnostic thought. That's like almost anti-Gnostic. Third, Vanellope's glitch is not a metaphor for sin. This take is so dumb, I legitimately struggle to believe that anybody in earnest actually believes it. Fourth and final point, Ralph does not represent the devil. The devil's whole thing is he wants humans to treat each other badly, so they distance themselves from God and become miserable just like him. Beyond a little bit of extremely vague symbolism, Ralph has almost nothing in common with the devil from the Bible. Ralph repeatedly acts in ways that are totally inconsistent with him. When Fix-It Felix and the people of Niceland apologize to Ralph, he just accepts their apology without asking for reparations. When he believes the medal that he so badly wants is putting Vanellope in danger, he throws it away. And most exceptionally, in the climax of the movie, when all seems lost, Ralph sacrifices his own life to protect his friends. Does that sound familiar? Jesus taught, "Greater love hath no man than he who lays down his life for his friends." He taught that at the Last Supper, which was the night before he would go lay down his life for his friends. In that setting, he says another thing that I think is worth reading. He says to his closest followers, he says, "A new commandment give I unto you, that you love one another, as I have loved you. And by this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you have love one to another." These lines are important to me when I think about what Jesus taught and the kind of person that I want to be. Christianity isn't about outward symbols. It's not about wearing crosses or looking for covert messaging in movies or pointing out demons and everything. Christianity is about how we treat each other. Thank you for watching.